Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our forum this afternoon for Workplace Confidence Survival Guide. My name is Stephanie Zane, and I am a shareholder at Archer and Griner, a full-service law firm and located in Haddonfield, New Jersey. I have the privilege of being the moderator of this event. I have been at Archer and Griner 20 years. I am the chair of the matrimonial department, and I am one of 6 female shareholders at the firm. So that's my background. We have a very distinguished panel here today, and I'm going to give them all 30 seconds to a minute to introduce themselves and wow you with their dynamic background. I'm going to let them go on their own. Robin, we'll start with you.
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Robin Lefkowitz, and I'm Executive Vice President. Wait till you hear this title, Director of Business Development, Branch Administration, and Deposit Operations. So it actually takes 3 lines when I type up my title under my signature. But I've been in banking my entire career. We are a local community bank that's based from Brooklyn to Staten Island and through Union, Middlesex, Hunterdon, and Mercer counties. And I have been with Northfield Bank for just about almost 16 years. I run all of the branches, the back office processing, and the business development efforts and outreach. And I'm very community oriented. I demand that of my people. And actually, we like relationships. So that's a little bit about me and Northfield Bank.
Perfect. How about you, Nigel?
Hi, thanks, Stephanie. I'm Nigel Morris, and I am Commercial Vice President at Novo Nordisk Pharmaceuticals, which is based in Princeton, New Jersey. It's a global pharmaceutical company where we really specialize on diabetes, obesity, and other serious chronic diseases across the world. One of the first makers of insulin, and that's certainly how we kind of got our start. I've been at Novo Nordisk for about 6 years. I've been in pharmaceuticals for about 20, and in healthcare a little bit longer than that. So I started out my career as a clinical social worker, working in direct care, and then started doing program management in community mental health. So I'm by trade a clinician, and certainly always wanting to do something around healthcare and the patient. I moved into pharmaceuticals shortly after that, spent 14 years at AstraZeneca Pharmaceuticals before coming over to Novo Nordisk, where I basically run the Northeast sales and educator team. So we have the United States is split into 4 areas. I have the Northeast, that's from New England down to Virginia, about 550 employees in my organization, and that is everything from direct sales to diabetes and obesity education, calling on physicians and other HCPs, as we call them, in the East area. And that's my job.
And certainly last but not least, Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. So I'm Jen Schimack. I'm a partner at KPMG in the Short Hills, New Jersey office. I actually have a background in the forensics group, where I specialize in anti-bribery and corruption, as well as compliance and regulatory issues for large pharmaceutical companies who want to make sure their compliance departments, their law departments, and their internal audits are functioning appropriately around the globe. So I've been lucky and fortunate enough to travel probably the world for many of the companies trying to make sure their employees are doing the right thing with the HCPs. I also serve as the office managing partner for KPMG for the Short Hills office. So there we function in a variety of ways, from audit, tax, and advisory. Definitely have a banking and financial services aspect as well. I've been with KPMG over 6 years now, but in professional accounting for the last, I guess, 23, 24 years. So very, very looking forward to this panel.
So I warned everybody that you guys were impressive. So it took us a lot longer than anticipated because you're so distinguished, which is exciting. We have a wealth of information to share. Before we start the substantive portion of the program, there are just a few housekeeping items. For anybody watching this, the full bios of everybody participating in this program can be found on the speaker section of the events page. And we have been asked to keep the conversation going using the hashtag NJWomen after, during, throughout this process. So please feel free to make sure you use the hashtags. So without any further ado, we are going to have a conversation, and I'm going to invite my co-panelist here to jump in at any time. Although I will periodically direct questions to you, I don't want you to feel at any time that you can't participate. We also have the chat feature going, so if there's anybody who wants to, if you want to tell me anything as we're going, please feel free to do so. So let's start with a basic question. What is confidence? So Nigel, let's start with you. Tell me what you think confidence is and what does it mean to you?
Yeah, so I think confidence for me is it's based in an assurance that I have it together, if for lack of a better expression. So it's the knowledge, it's the experiences, it's the comfort that I have in certain environments that allow me to be fully myself and not worry about the impact of being myself in that situation.
And when did you first find your confidence?
Well, I think it's an ongoing, it's an ongoing battle, so to speak. But I find for me, confidence is directly tied. So I think it has to do with what's important and what you value. So what I value is knowledge and bringing value. So I find myself at my most confident in environments where I feel assured of the value that I'm able to bring to that environment and that I know enough to really be able to kind of follow and make impact. So that value and impact piece for me is probably the key to my confidence. And certainly if I find myself not feeling confident in a certain situation, I know that that's where I have to go back and do some work so that I can find that confidence again. And that's why I say it's ongoing. I can't say I'm 100% confident all the time for sure.
How about you, Robin? You've been in your field a long time, and how have you gotten your confidence and why is it important to you?
So I will say that it takes a while to get there. It's not something that happens automatically. And I feel like the more successful you feel at what you do, the more fulfilled you feel at what you do, the more confidence you gain, and the better you feel and the better you project, and probably the more you get recognized. So, you know, as Nigel said, it is something that continuously occurs, and I could feel very unconfident in a certain situation, or I can feel very confident in a certain situation. It's an inborn feeling that it's almost like that little voice in your head that talks to you and it keeps you going or it makes you shut down. And one thing that I've learned is to keep pushing myself to get to the point where if something was uncomfortable initially, I can get comfortable at it. And then it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Then you become more confident as that happens. So
Jen, I see you shaking your head, Jen. Is it the same trajectory for you?
Yeah, it is the same. I think the only other couple things, I think confidence comes with age, right? The more you are accepting of yourself for who you are, right? We do a lot of growing up over the years, and I think as you start to work professionally, whatever field you're led to, you tend to get into an area that makes you happy, and I think that develops the confidence. But I also think that the mentors you meet along the way, whether they're formal or informal, kind of help with that coaching or crafting of who you're going to become. So I think that that confidence definitely comes over time. And then you're always learning and being coached through different trainings. But I do think, having those mentors help guide you through those growing phases was really impactful for me.
So I agree, and mentorship was part of our later conversation, but let's get there because in my world, obviously having a strong female mentor allowed me to see what I could do. And
Yep.
I'm fortunate. I have one of my partners is a former judge, and I appeared before her when she was on the bench, and I knew she was somebody in the law world that I wanted to emulate. So how did you, Nigel, did you find yourself a mentor, and how did you choose your mentor, or did your mentor choose you?
Oh, that's a really great question. So I've been doing this a long time. So I've actually had several mentors, and I will tell you that for me, mentors have been critical. So I'll use one example. My first mentor, who I think really shaped what was possible for me. And I love the way Jen put that, just in terms of, there's a lot of becoming that happens. And I don't know if that's specific to women, because it's certainly, that's only my only experience and lens. But I think that when I look back on it and you talk about confidence and age, sometimes that's that experience. And some people get there faster than others, but God knows, I think the confidence is definitely more, now after 20 plus years in the industry. But my first mentor was actually a male. But he was definitely an ally, so to speak. And so he sat me down, and it was the first person who actually hired me into pharmaceuticals, and told me what he saw in me and how it could translate to other things beside, the entry-level representative position that I had as a sales rep. And so it was his belief in me, but also his ability to help me navigate politically, so to speak, and to also connect me with strong female leaders. And so I use that example because I think it's important. It's so important to see representation, right? So female leadership matters, and it has definitely been very inspirational to me. But in the case of the mentor that I think is really the person who got me started on my pathway, it was a male. So don't count out, if you happen to be in a situation, as many of us are, where there aren't, or maybe there's a dearth of female leaders where you are. The right male leader, I think, can be as instrumental in where you're going as a female leader that you can emulate. And certainly I've had lots of wonderful female leaders, some who've chosen me and some who I've literally walked up to where I've seen something in them that, to your point, Stephanie, that I want to emulate, and I ask about that. Would you mind? I would love to take this relationship further. So certainly that has helped build confidence over the years, for sure.
How about you, Robin? Have you had any strong mentors over the years, and did they find you or did you find them?
So I also had a male mentor, but I'm going to say that I had a male and a female not too distant from each other. So I found them. There was an executive vice president in a bank that I started with, I'm going to say probably 35 years ago. And she was personable. She was bright. She maintained really good eye contact, and she had poise. And I remember seeing her present, and I'm going to tell you something else. She wore pantsuits, and that was not the case 30 some odd years ago. Women wore skirt suits. So for those of you around my age understand what that means. So I saw that, and I was very impressed with her, and she was very approachable, and she was very welcoming. So that was my first entry in with a woman mentor. And then at around the same time, I had a male who was, he was a higher level boss of mine. And he said he saw in me qualities that he knew would go far. And between the two of them, I never stopped posting for positions and always interviewing for promotion potential, even if I wasn't going to get it. So it gave me the confidence to show everybody that I was going to continue and move up the ladder. So I agree, don't discount a male. And obviously it's who you feel comfortable and who you develop a relationship with that feels comfortable with you as a worker and as a person.
So Jen, I'm assuming that you've also had mentors throughout your career. How did you get the confidence or the courage to align yourself with that person so that they could be your mentor, so that they would see what you had to offer?
So I think a lot of it happened organically, and I hate to say that because I think people want more of a prescriptive way of things happen. But when I, finished grad school and went into the Big Four, I didn't know what I was doing, right? I felt totally lost, and I felt like, wait a second, I was talented before and now I have no clue. And there was a woman who saw in me, to Robin's perspective, that saw something in me that she thought was trainable and coachable and took me under her wing and just spent, I mean, I was with her for 7 years. It was a huge impact on my life. She was an attorney from the Office of Inspector General. So she had all of this insight of training from whether it's work plans and way to do engagements that really taught me the basis of being a good professional. And then I think what happened to me is being in healthcare and life sciences, right? I'm lucky to be with a lot of women by nature, and I tend to like working with other women. So I sort of paid it forward with my teams. I mean, I think if you look at the dynamics of a big four accounting firm, not as large of population of women as you move up through the ranks, but I mean, 90% of my team right now is all women, and I enjoy them. And I think I've tried to look the same way to pick out people that I thought were coachable and trainable and wanted to kind of make that same impact on them as was made on me. So I think a lot of, and Robin said it too, a lot of what happens to you is obviously talent, but it's also a little bit of luck, and it's a little bit of putting yourself out there, even if you're rejected, right? None of us like to be rejected, but it happens. So I think it's a lot of that magic that goes together that you look back in the rear view mirror 20 something years later and you're like, wow, this is a miracle. I made it. So
Right. So you obviously are now giving that back. Nigel,
definitely.
have you taken on a mentor position for anybody, and how are you using that to help females coming up the ranks find their
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
not only
Oh,
do I
sorry.
do it, it's probably the thing that brings me the most joy. I that pay it forward piece is so important. It's like if I can cut in half or shrink down in some way the journey and the lessons that it took me a while to learn for someone else, I find such joy in that. And I think especially for women, there are just particular nuances and experiences that we have and things that challenges that we go through. So for example, trying to manage a career and a family. I've been through times in my career where I was challenged at home raising young children, and that was maybe seen as something that would get in the way of me taking on more responsibility. And how fair is that, when men are raising families as well too, but might not have to deal with some of those same questions that people might not say outright because it's not really appropriate to do so, but certainly behind closed doors, they're thinking about that. So that's just one example, and I think that giving back and identifying talent. And let me tell you, if I'm on a call or in a meeting and I see someone and I see that spark, I am so fast to go up to that person because I know sometimes how difficult it is for them to approach me. And so I think that that's the piece of it that just that gives me, I find so rewarding is being able to be that person for someone else, because I know how important mentors continue to be to me personally as well.
Robin, are you acting as a mentor at the currently?
So I would say that I am, but we don't have a formal mentor program. So what I've done internally is I always speak at our branch manager meetings. And I think this is important, I've always maintained an open door policy. So right now my door is closed because we're on a call, but I have my door open unless I'm meeting with somebody and I have to close the door. I always feel that somebody should be able to approach me. I have my cell phone number on my signature, on all my emails, and I always give it out. I speak at our new hire orientations. I speak at our manager meetings. And then I have small breakfasts that I get together with groups. And I'm not saying women, I'm saying in general. And I can't help but spew advice. And this could be the age thing that we talked about a few moments ago. But, I'm pretty much an open book in that I will share of myself because I always feel that people feel uncomfortable sharing. So I will always share so that I make it a more comfortable situation, so that I feel that there's not a reason why you can't ask me a question. And you're going to get an honest answer from me, and I will tell them that. So I think that's also part of confidence, is not being afraid to give an honest answer. But I always say, and this is kind of like my biggest bit of advice, is always take a little bit of everybody you work with or for. And it's not always a positive. So you could work for somebody that you never want to be like. Well, you just took that internally and determined that's not who you want to be. So you just learn from that experience. The same thing with positive experiences. What do you see in that individual that you want to emulate? So this is just always how I've kind of felt, and that's the advice that I give. So
It's about finding and creating opportunities every day.
correct. Every
I try
day.
to tell our young, two of my associates are younger females, and I try to tell them that it's the same thing. You've got to look at
Yes.
what the people that you're surrounded by, and they may
Correct.
not always be the poster child that you want to emulate. But you're right, you're learning something, and you've got to take the opportunity. And sometimes that's intimidating. I think I think we can all agree.
Yes.
So, and people sometimes mistake confidence for not having insecurities. And while I'm a very confident person, that doesn't mean I'm insecure, or doesn't mean at times I'm not insecure. So tell me about that. How do you overcome that, the insecurities that dealing with, male dominated professions? As Jen was saying, the women in higher positions are fewer and far between as you get up the ranks. What do you do to manage your own insecurities to maintain your confidence in your abilities? So Jen, I'm going to go to you on that one.
Sure. I mean, I think it's a challenge, right? I think it's a challenge no matter what age or stage of your career you're in. I think obviously the younger you are in your career, you're probably exposed to more training and coaching, or maybe that's just the big four way where there's a lot of opportunities to work on those insecurities and methods to kind of put them at bay. I also think, again, like we've talked about, it's a little bit about experience and going through some of those stressful moments where you're like sweating on the inside and somehow you pull it through, right? And then I also think, I mean, I even have to do it now. I have to coach myself and say, okay, you're going to calm down. You're not going to respond to that email tonight. That is not something that's going to be good if you hit send. You're going to wait until the morning. You're going to take a breath. Would you want it public? I have to like do that to myself, where I've learned to live with the uncomfortable pause, which is not something that's great for everyone. So I think those are some of the things I've tried to instill in my, day-to-day life to I guess go on this longer journey, because it's really a marathon for all of us, right? It's not a quick sprint. So I really have to reiterate that in my head as I go day to day.
Yeah, practice the pause, right? Practice the pause.
Practice the pause. The pause is so uncomfortable and so stressful. And it's funny because I went to a speech training like way years ago in my career, and they'd always say, sit back in your chair and take that pause. I'm like, oh God, the pause, right? It's like so torturous to take, but it's powerful. So
Right.
I
And
remind myself.
that pause may be 5 minutes, it may be 24 hours, right?
Right.
You don't know what any situation is gonna warrant, because sometimes you need that extra 5 minutes to make sure you don't say something that you're not going, that you
That
can't
you're
take
going to
back.
regret.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I totally agree.
So you said that you went to a seminar early on. You were talking about that. Do you
Yep.
still do that? Do you find yourself going to seminars? Do you to help with your confidence and to help gain skills for as you
I think
continue to
I'm like
progress?
doing those trainings more for people. So I do have to do them internally. Well, now it's all via WebEx or whatever, right? But I'm not going as much to them. I still think it would be valuable, but I think the expectation is more on the up and comers, right? Where you're kind of already in your seat, and we still do a bit of it, but I don't feel like as much. Like I have to go back in my head and remember the things that I've been taught or told to try and work on those. But I do think some of those trainings are more focused on our more junior staff members to help them through those tougher years of being at a big four accounting firm and trying to figure things out, and less about us.
So, Nigel, would you recommend for people coming up through the ranks that they attend seminars like that? And do you find them to be beneficial to gaining
Yeah,
skills?
for sure, for sure. And I know that depending on the industry that you're in, you may or may not, work for an industry in pharma. There's, to Jen's point, a lot of internal training like that we do tend to be the ones doing, or we sit on panels like this. But I think that finding those conferences, those seminars that will help you, not only do you get the skills and you listen to people who are really great, but you also get to meet people. And so I think that depending if you happen to be someplace where you don't have a lot of access to those kinds of seminars and trainings, that's where that circle of colleagues can be so important, just people to bounce things off of, or who might say, hey, I just read this article. Like I do a lot of reading now because I don't have time. A lot of times, like sometimes I'm choosing between a seminar and someplace, honestly, that I have to be. And I hate that my own development, my own continued development and self-care sometimes takes a back seat to other priorities. And so, getting those quick fixes, those articles. I know people will say, what's the latest book that you read? I don't read a lot of full books. I just don't find that I'm a big reader, but if I'm reading, it's usually to completely unplug. And so I'm reading something that absolutely has nothing to do with work or anything like that of value. Surprised to say, but I do think that these articles, podcasts, anything like that, that's where I tend to get a lot of that information. And it really can, I think, change things, even give you a fresh perspective, no matter how long you've been doing it.
How about you, Robin?
So I always feel that training is a very good thing, because how else is somebody going to get information that they may not otherwise be able to surround themselves with it? I'm not a big self-help book kind of person. I'm more of a novel kind of like Nigel said, you don't want to read about the stuff that you do. You kind of want to go away from it a little bit. So that's kind of my refuge is going into that, novel. I like FBI, CIA, crime kind of solving things. But anyway, I think that I always say education is power. And I always try to convince staff that doesn't have a college education to finish that education. Those that have it, go back for additional schooling and sign up for anything that is of interest to you in any way that you can better yourself. And I also recommend seeing a career coach if the need arises, and be able to have somebody that can give you feedback and be able to give you advice on where you need to go from an objective perspective. So I think that's also very important to further your career and get as much knowledge under your belt to therefore gain the confidence and be able to move up.
So it's funny when I find that young lawyers, they think that all they should talk about is the law. So you go out to meet them at, the young law clerks or the young law events, and they want to talk about the law and they want to tell you what they're, and I find I don't want to hear them talk about the law. I am more captivated and more impressed by somebody who is young and able to have a conversation about anything other than the law. I want to know who you are as a person. And I think that sometimes, especially women, we get kind of trapped in trying to prove ourselves. And I don't know if that's an experience you've had, but I know, as I say, I've been here 20 years, and when I was much younger and less wrinkles, I would say that, I would want to prove that I could go to court and I could, try a case and I could do all that. And then I found that I was losing interest, and people were losing interest in conversations because they really wanted to know who I was. Mm-hmm. So do you find it's important to have balance across the board, or interest outside of what you're doing? In obviously you're very busy women, you clearly have families and a lot of different directions, but I find that my sanity comes from having a broad base of interests. So do you encourage that in the people who work for you and with you? So Jen, what do you have to say about that?
100%. So we've even since COVID, right? We've even pushed or encouraged people to start the meeting and talk about something not personal, but to open it up. What'd you do for the weekend? Did you have a good time? Whatever it happens to be. I mean, I have college age twins who, I love to talk about because there's always some drama going on in my household, right? And I think it makes people laugh, like, oh God, what did Caitlin do this time, right? But so we do try to encourage that, because I think when we went into this Zoom, world. I mean, even before that, but it was very much, you got down to business as soon as you got on the call. And I think for a lot of younger team members, they want to know you're human. You're setting an example for them deciding whether they want to be you. I want them to look at me and say, yep, that's the kind of career I want to be. Yep, she was a mom, she has successful kids, whatever it happens to be. And I think it's, to my point earlier, it's a long journey. And so I think, you have to be human, and it's a lot easier behind this computer screen to just get in and get to business versus if we were all in a big conference room and be like, hey, how was the weekend? What'd you do? Type thing. So I highly encourage it, but I'm super personable. I wear my heart on my sleeve. Everybody kind of knows everything, right? And to Robin's point, I'm willing to share and it doesn't bother me. But if you don't want to share, that's fine too. But I'm trying to make it a warm environment so that you feel like you have this space where you can grow and flourish and make mistakes, because that's going to happen. But that's kind of been my plan for at least my career as soon as I got to the points where I could make the decisions and kind of create the environment.
Yeah, if I could can I add on to that, Stephanie? I'm sorry. This one's
no.
really, it's so interesting the way that you put it too, when you were talking about yourself as a young associate, wanting to kind of prove your knowledge base and that sort of thing, and seeing that interest wane. I think it's something that I see that definitely is a male versus female thing. And I've actually talked to some of my male colleagues about it. They love, when we talk about the good old boys network, a lot of that is just code for, we talk about other things, we do other things together, we have other interests that we share. And so I tell people all the time, being known and sharing your authentic self is as important as your skill set. And that's not always a comfortable place. I think a lot of people, especially a lot of women, tend to be guarded. They feel like, you know what? I mean, this is work and work is work and my home life is my home life. And I just want to do my job and do it really well. And that should be enough. But that's really not human nature. So I think it's a really important point that I just wanted to underscore, because it's like being known and creating these relationships that are multidimensional and that are not just based on what your competency is or what your job, description is, but more about who you are. I think that people tend to lean in to people who they know and who they like, quite frankly. And then the mistakes happen and it's okay because they know who you are. And they're like, oh, let me help you with that, as opposed to, I can't believe that, that person is so incompetent. It doesn't happen that way when you really fully know someone. So opening yourself as much as possible, as much as is comfortable, I think is really important. And it does build your confidence as well.
I completely agree with you. And I say to people all the time, being a divorce lawyer is what I do. It's not who I am. And I'm happy to tell you all about the same thing as Jen. You want to hear a crazy story? I'm happy to tell you that. But it took me a long time to get the confidence to be able to share who I am, what I'm able to do, and to set expectations and to set, boundaries within my world, within my work, within my family, so that you can be successful in all areas, because I think that builds your confidence and makes you a much happier person. So Robin, did you ever have a situation where you've had to manage the expectations that was asked of you from your employer? And how did you do it?
Oh, sure. I mean, you manage expectations every day, but you have to do it in the way that you feel comfortable. It's funny because I do think it's an age thing, and you develop the qualities that you need to be able to do that. You have to put your whole self into everything that you do. And that doesn't mean that everybody's going to be pleased with what you do or say. But when you have a job that you have to get done, you know that it has to be done. And it has to be done properly, within guidelines, within compliance and audit and the whole spiel. But there's nothing wrong with putting your own personal spin on everything and just making sure that everything is done appropriately. And, just like Jen and Nigel have been saying, the same thing, you have to share of yourself. You have to develop your team. You have to gain this confidence, because if you have a job that you have to manage to, and you have a deadline or you have an expectation, you have to be able to call on a team that you trust and that you believe in and that has your back as well. So those people who give of themselves and have an ability to share, those that only do their job don't let you see what they're capable of. They may be great at what they do, but you need to be able to trust that the people that you are assigning things to are able to look at it thoughtfully. And you can't always do that with somebody that just does a task and just, manages a position. You have to look at them holistically. So I think that all of this builds upon itself. It's the confidence, it's the success, it's the repetition, it's the feeling comfortable enough to share, it's the development of relationships. And that's, it's a cycle that just keeps giving. But you have to be willing, you have to jump on the carousel and, spin around with it, because if you're not, you're just going to be stagnant in a particular area. So to be able to develop, yes, we get things accomplished all the time, but you have to get things accomplished in a comfortable manner that you feel that the job is being done satisfactorily to your capabilities.
Sometimes that's scary to
It
jump
is.
on that
It is
carousel. And
very, very scary. And being in a room where you don't know the answer to things is an uncomfortable situation. And like Jen said, that pause, sometimes I don't speak, I listen. That's part of it too. Listening is very, very important. I also speak a lot, as you can tell, but you have to be able to sit back and listen and hear participation and hear what happened and what can go wrong. And you have to be able to make decisions. And, I always weigh the hands of the scale, and when you have a situation, how far does it tip in terms of risk? What is the chance of loss? Or what is the chance of not coming up with a satisfactory outcome? So those scale hands have always served me right. And it's intuition too, so.
it's funny, it goes back to when I was little and my mom would say to me, it's okay to make a mistake. It's what you
Yes.
do with that mistake. And I think that, as a younger associate and coming up through the ranks, I was very intimidated and very concerned about making the mistake and somebody perceiving me as having made a mistake. And then I realized that what was really important was figuring out what to do next and being able to find the right team of people to help me get to the next step, because we're not robots, we're all human. And that comes, I think, from making sure people know who you are as a whole person, not just what you do. And I find that my team works, my department, my group works much better with the fact that we all know each other. We all know each other's kids, and we know each other's spouses. We know each other's significant others. Do you find that I know that there used to be the work personal dynamic that we kept separate apart, but do you find that builds camaraderie and the confidence within your group, knowing each other, and do you find that to be helpful within the people that you work with? Nigel?
Yeah, I think it's really important. And I think that depending on the kind of organization that you work in, sometimes you have to figure out creative ways to do that. So for example, I have a field team, right? So everyone is spread out and we get together for meetings, but it's not like we're going in day out into an office environment where we're seeing each other every day. And so certainly starting, using myself as an example and modeling that type of behavior and talking about my family or talking about, the names. One thing I do with a new team all the time when we're putting together a roster, I have, what's your pets' names? What are your children's names? When are your birthdays? And we try to celebrate those things together. And, we have a text thread. We send pictures of accomplishments for our children. My youngest son just started in his first collegiate soccer game, 2 weeks ago, and those pictures went out to everybody. So I think that that's really important. And to that point, it builds that camaraderie. It builds that connection. And I think that connection always serves you well, whether it's someone tapping you on the shoulder to say, hey, you missed that, or here's something that can help you. Once again, I think that those things tend to happen more, and you can depend on your team around you more when you've built that level of connectedness with people.
I think Jen, did you have something you wanted to say, or did you freeze on us? The
Oh,
beauty
am
of
I still
Zoom.
frozen?
You're good now. The beauty of Zoom.
Okay, no, no, I 100% agree. I mean, I think we're lucky enough a lot of times to have longevity in our organization, so it allows for that development of deeper relationships. The positions aren't turning over as frequently. You're traveling to, far off lands and together for 3 weeks at a time, eating dinner, breakfast, everything. You really get to know people. And I think I personally truly make an effort to keep up with, hey, how's this individual doing, or whatever, just to make sure that they all feel connected, because I think they're much more loyal to the company being connected within the organization. And in the end, that's just better for the broader group and the broader teams for that connectivity.
I try to remind my group all the time that it's not just about my level of confidence. It's the confidence is contagious as I see it. And even in the women's networking groups that I'm part of here, the new people, you can see they're timid, and it's important to bring them on and for them to feel included. And all of those little things that sometimes we all take for granted, just making eye contact and sitting down next to somebody new and introducing yourself and telling a silly story, really does help bring everybody together, I think, and for the greater good. Of the organization, of your company, of my firm. It's amazing to me just how much a little bit of kindness in this crazy world, what it does for all of us. It's when I look at the dynamic women on this board, obviously you are each unique in your own roles and in your positions. But I would love, we only have less than 10 minutes left in our seminar, which is amazing that the hour has gone that fast. I would love for you to each tell me what makes you unique in the role that you hold, and how that translates to confidence. So Robin, you want to start us off?
Sure. I think I'm going to say positive outlook on everything is something that's unique. I try to put a positive spin even on a negative situation. I'm always a believer. I know we talked a few moments ago about making a mistake, but we always learn from mistakes. So as long as the mistake is not so horrific that it's not manageable, just put it behind you and move forward, because you'll never do it again, and you will, always look at that as something that occurred and that you were able to learn from it and gain confidence that it won't happen again. So I tend to speak in adjectives, and I like to point out very successful things that happen with my teams. And I like to break bread with people. I feel like when you eat with somebody, people let their guard down, and then you can talk a little bit of personal in addition to business. So I know this is a lot of the stuff that we've already spoken about, but I think that that's what makes me different. I'll want to have a small group of managers go to breakfast with me and just do like a catch up and tell me what's going on in your areas and how can I help you? Or is there anything that you want to bounce off of me? Or do you need support from the executive team or human resources or branch administration or any of the areas in the back office? So I feel I put myself out there, and I do have my phone on 24/7. I know that's a bad thing, but I will answer your email, or I tell people text me, because if I'm in a meeting, I'll answer you right away if I can. So I think that that's kind of probably different, but I think it's a good thing. And I think it's what makes me me. And that's why I like to share success. And it's contagious. The more success, the more confidence. Again, we're spinning around this carousel.
That's great. How about you, Jen?
I mean, I definitely agree with Robin. I think the one piece for me is really being truly accessible to individuals. I think that is kind of my job in the role I'm in now is to really be that person who is willing to take the time. I think I probably was picked for the role based on, personality traits that make me very approachable. But I also have really tried to implement a good listening ear because I think sometimes people tell you the facts that you need to help them through decisions or how to bring more confidence to them. And really, I'm super protective of the people who want some sort of help or assistance. To me, there's no dire decision in professional accounting that can't be resolved. So don't cover things up. Come to me and let's figure things out as a broader team. And I think I really, and I know I mentioned it earlier about the paying it forward. I think it's super important for those that have been fortunate enough to be successful. I owe it to those people to watch out and protect them and help pave that roadway for them, as others have done for me. So I think just the people aspect to me is huge, and that can make all the difference in somebody's long-term career.
And Miguel, what
Yes,
makes
so
you what
for
makes you
sure.
unique?
Well, I think for me, there's kind of layers to it, right? So I think the first one that I'll call out because I think it's important is as a woman of color who's a senior leader in my organization, just from the outside, from a representation perspective, that is unique. Probably unfortunately how unique it is. And that's something that I think all of us are trying to solve for sure. But what that means is that I'm bringing a diverse background and experiences and lens that is common to some people, certainly common to some patients. But I think brings more perspective to any conversation that's had. And that's why I go back to saying when you bring your full self to work, that's part of the diversity that we need to ensure that we're making really strong decisions and representative decisions as a company. So that's one piece. But when it comes to me personally, I would like to think, if you asked, the people that I work with, that I lead with people. I'm a clinician, I'm a therapist at heart. And so even though I am in a commercial role, where the bottom line and hitting our goal is extremely important, I've just found over time that you only do that through people. And so I tend to lead by getting to know people, genuinely finding that connection and caring for people. And then out of that comes coaching. Out of that comes some of the conversations that we have, whether it's around development, whether it's about leveraging, people's strengths to hit goals, or painting the vision for what's possible. I think when we lead with people, that's most important. And so I would say that definitely differentiates me as a leader for sure. And it's something that I always fall back into because without people, it doesn't matter how great your strategy is. It doesn't matter how great, your materials are. You're not going to hit that goal if you don't understand the key to what motivates people.
It's true. I think that for me, I tend to find my confidence and I tend to be at the top of my game when I try to see myself through the eyes of others. And I try to look at some of the younger people and think about how they perceive me because perception's reality. So I try to remember that because I think that it makes me be a better person, which is before being a lawyer, I want to be a better person than being a better lawyer. Although I like to be a good lawyer. But I think that that's the reality is that you're right. It's all about people. It's all about relationships and it's all about helping each other get there without stepping on anybody along the way because
Right.
there's plenty of room for everybody is what I tell people. So
Yes.
so everybody needs to remember that. So, well, ladies, it has been my pleasure to spend the last hour with you guys. So on behalf of Robin and Nigel and Jen, I want to thank everybody for watching our show here today. And I called a show because I feel like we were very entertaining if, I found us entertaining. So I'm hoping that everybody else did. And if anybody has any questions, all of our bio information is available and we look forward to hearing from everybody. Bye, everybody.